Good morning, everyone. My name is Raj. I'm the founder and CEO of Connexio, and I have Dr. Amardeep Kaur with me.
Hi.
Welcome, Dr. Kaur. So just to tell you a little about our speaker, this is one of the first speaker series that we are doing. There are going to be many that follow, but the first one is on electrical engineering or electronics and communication that students study in India. So good evening to all of you who are in India right now. A little about Dr. Kaur. She has a bachelor's in electronics and communication from Punjab in India, a master's and PhD from Missouri University of Science and Technology, and her research areas are optical fiber sensing and engineering education. We are going to go through a format, but before we start, I'll tell you a little about the format that we're going to follow. Let me explain. Electronics and communication, or any derivative of electronics engineering that you use in India, is essentially electrical engineering. It's a branch of electrical engineering. So when we talk about electrical engineering or electronics communication, both these fields are going to be synonymous, right? So please do not get confused with that. All right, so the questions that we received from all the people who registered for the session were essentially equal split between questions on electrical engineering and then questions on immigration and how to prepare for studying in foreign universities. And then at the end, we'll take questions from the audience. So it's essentially going to be a 20-minute session on electrical engineering and then 20 minutes on immigration questions. And then the last 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, we'll leave for the audience to ask any specific questions if we've missed. Now, we've taken a lot of general questions and we've put them in separate buckets. So those are the general questions that we'll try to answer today. And if you have specific questions that you asked when you were registering and you think those were not answered, please follow up on the email that we're going to send you. We're going to publish all those answers. Dr. Kaur is going to take her time and publish those answers, and we are going to send you a link after the session. So let's get started. Well, Dr. Kaur, thank you so much for joining us. The first question that students always ask is, what are the best practices during a bachelor's degree? What should they study if they want to be successful in, let's say, the electrical engineering branch?
So this is true for any engineering branch generally. Primarily, you should try to get as much hands-on experience as possible. So this would be trying to do your own projects outside of coursework. I know that engineering degrees in India primarily are not geared towards giving you many projects in your coursework. You're probably going to do a couple of projects. There's probably one due at the end of your degree, that kind of a deal. But try to do your individual projects. They could be, programming based. It could be hardware based. Whatever you like to do. It could be a hobby or something like that. So on your own time, beyond your coursework, that demonstrates that you are interested in something and also establishes that you have those skill sets. Okay, so that's one part of it. The other is, of course, doing well on your academics. So, having good grades, having a good grasp of fundamentals, beyond the grades as well. So that's another part. The other thing is trying to get as many internships or 6-month trainings as possible. So different universities have different formats with that. But beyond your required trainings, try to do short summer trainings. Try to find local companies, labs, workshops, whatever you can get your hands at, again, to get those skills and to get as much hands-on experience. So experience, US or anywhere else, like first-hand experience is valued quite a lot beyond your academia. And then the last component, again, which makes for a successful, graduate candidate for master's or PhD degrees, is beyond your academia, beyond your technical skills. You have to establish either community service or extracurricular activities. And if you do both, then great. Those things are really, really valued in West generally, US, Canada, Western education market. So the universities are generally looking for soft skills in addition to your technical skills as well.
Great, great. That's great, great advice, Dr. Kaur. Thank you so much. One thing that I wanted to touch on is the amount of research that the students should do.
Mm-hmm.
So let's assume there are students who are going to go directly into a job after their bachelor's degree, or there are some who want to study further and do their master's and PhD. What sort of research they have options to, and how should they pursue those?
Sure. So whether you should have any research or not depends on what your career choices are going to be later on. So if you want to pursue graduate degrees, master's or PhD, then research is very valuable. Definitely for PhD. So if you know for sure that you are going to pursue PhD, or there's a chance that you might, then you should get some research experience. If you're going to go into job right after your bachelor's or undergrad, then it's not that required, and it may or may not be beneficial depending upon where you're heading. Generally speaking, research is very valuable in learning by doing. That's one thing. It establishes your contacts in research industry. So that's the second advantage you are going to have. So I would say if you have opportunities around, and in India specifically, those opportunities are, you can find three different categories. One is if you are on a campus or know a campus that actually confers PhD degrees. So that particular university campus is going to have research opportunities. So even if you're not on that campus yourself, you can go talk to the professors who have PhDs, who have doctor title, or people who are doing their PhD for collaboration on just short projects. You can help them out. You could be part of their publications as a co-author, okay? Or professors might give you your own project to work on. Their advantage of doing so is getting more publications, which is, that's helpful in their professional career. For you, it would be a huge weight added to your resume. Again, establishing your scholarly qualities, your research qualities, and that gives you a chance to see what research means. Until you do it, there's no way of explaining what you have to do and how you do research. You just have to do it because it varies from one field to another. So that's one way of doing it. Second category is research organizations. So in India, those would be DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization, and most of the major cities have some subsidiary of DRDO. Some of your cities might have CSIO labs. That's a good opportunity to pursue research. There are ISRO mini labs in some places, Bangalore, Calcutta, and others as well. So, that will be another avenue. And then the third avenue is going to be industry. So you can actually find your own research topic and go to your local industry, local companies, local labs, workshops, whatever opportunities you have, and work with them to explore a particular research topic on your own. Now, it's not going to help you if you just do research and don't really publish it. Okay, so you have to present it either at some international conference or national conference, or have it published in a reputable journal. Okay, so then it will be advantageous to you.
Great. I think that's a lot of things to think about for our students here. So if you've missed some details, we'd be more than happy to publish those details after the talk on our website, connexio.io. Moving to the next questions. So Dr. Kaur, a lot of students, it is the age of software, right? A lot of students want to know, as an electrical engineer or electronics and communication engineer, what are the softwares that they should learn during their bachelor's degree that'll help them either for a job or for higher education?
Sure. So I think general advantages are going to be the same. Having some programming skills would benefit you the same way if you are pursuing a higher education degree or a job. So for electrical, electronics, communication engineers out there, I would suggest that you should have a mastery or proficiency in at least one simulation tool. It could be MATLAB, could be ANSYS, could be Multisim, PSpice, any of CAD tools for mechanical engineers. It would be the CAD tools that you deal with. So one simulation tool that you actually use, or are usually taught as part of one-year courses. So that is a must. And then try to learn one programming language. Okay, so I know that I think you're probably still being taught C or C++. That's a good starting point. But if you want to go beyond that, if you like statistic analysis, like playing with numbers, then R, Python, JavaScript, those are really good. Just pick one, okay? And no matter what type of engineer you are, that one language for statistical data analysis is going to help you a lot. Finding a job, yes, those languages are hot right now, but also in your research as well. So if you're pursuing higher studies, it might involve research, might involve dealing with a lot of data, okay? So it's going to help you. And then you can also, in terms of job as well, JavaScript in addition to C, C++. If you're not that programming savvy and you're not that comfortable, then I would say just pick one. C++ would be my starting point, okay? So practice as much as you can. So if you have a good grasp of basic C++, then you can learn the other languages later on, okay? But at least one programming language and one of the ones that I've listed, okay? C is not that useful anymore, not unless you're going to go towards microcontroller programming, which is another category. So that will be embedded C, okay? But we are using so many different microcontrollers these days. 8051 is no longer, in use that much. You might be getting taught 8051 and programming it, but I would suggest investing in Raspberry Pi or small Arduino kit and practicing on that. These are not really programming as such. This is not a programming language. You just code or program microcontroller. It's really easy to learn on your own. There are plenty of resources online. So depending upon, again, where you want to go, but again, I would say at least one simulation tool from your own field and then one programming language for sure.
Got it. Great. Great suggestions there. From my own experience, I'd like to add, Dr. Kaur, that learning R is unlike learning a programming language. So if you don't like programming language and you still want to go into data analysis, which would help you get a job in any field that you want, R is the way to go. So that's a good place to start. The next question is a little more specific into the field, but one student asked that if she wants to pursue robotics during her master's or master's PhD, what should she be doing now? So we'll just spend another 2 minutes on this and then start moving to the general one.
Sure. For robotics, it's good that you know what your interests are, first of all, but I would recommend that, again, they focus on the skills that they need to acquire for robotics. And when we say robotics, there are multiple different fields that you could pursue. So you have to first identify whether you like to program. Okay, so if you want to go towards training or calibrating, robots, neural networks, or if you are more interested in hardware design itself, okay, or you're more interested in testing. So I'll focus on the first two, which are more interesting. So in terms of the programming, so again, so you have to have at least one programming skill. So, and in terms of that, I'm talking beyond R and Python. This have to be C, C++, JavaScript. Okay, so these type of programming languages, because you'll have to code, train the neural network. So those are the common programming platforms that we use. And in terms of getting experience, so when we think about robots, we think really big. Like big, large-scale robots. They don't have to be. So again, try to search online for mini robotic projects that you can do on your own. So if you just search for DIY robotics kits or building your own mini robot, things like that. So there are tons of resources out there. I would suggest make some of your own, get programming experience, get that hardware experience. And it doesn't matter how small or, if it consists of 3 components or 5 components, that is irrelevant. The point is that you know what goes behind building a robot, okay? So a robot can have 1 million, semiconductor devices or just 100. It's still going to be a robot. So you don't have to realize 1,000 things with it, even if it does 1 or 2 things, right? And that's sufficient. Then again, going back to my earlier point, getting some internship or training experience. So there are great robotic companies in India. You know, some of the startups, some of the ones that are international, but they hire in India, and I'm sure they have training programs as well. So iRobot is, you know, just internationally, it's pretty big in terms of that. We have Epson. There is Gray Orange. Systemantics. So Gray Orange and Systemantics, they're really big now. They are Indian startup companies, but worldwide now. So, you know, reach out to them and find out if they have internship opportunities, or if you can work with them part-time as a trainee. So that would be a good starting point.
Great. And also, I know that you've led a few conferences and competitions yourself with robotic teams. And I'm sure students can look for those sort of competitions around the world that they can go to.
Absolutely. So, and I will give you one really good resource, generally true for any, you know, e-engineering, so electrical, electronics, and including communications. So if you look for IEEE, and specifically, I'm part of Region 5 here in the US. So we hold, you know, robotics competitions every year. So you can actually go on to IEEE R5 Region 5 website to find out what type of robotic competitions they have. You can generally search IEEE robotic competitions. And the idea with that is, of course, you can form a group, so a group of 3 or 4 people, and then they actually release what you need to do, what your robot needs to do at the competition sometime beforehand, and then, you know, you're allowed time to practice, build the robot beforehand, and all of that. So you know what it needs to do. It usually includes, you know, line following, edge detection, picking something, sorting it out by either shape or color, and putting it at a specific place. So those are usually, you know, general type of things that you will be asked to do. So if you want to form a robotics group, you know, on your campus, that will be another great thing. You can find like-minded people who like to do these type of things, and, you know, start building stuff.
Great. Now moving on to the next step. So we've covered what to do during the bachelor's degree. Now let's step further and, you know, think about what can they do after they've graduated with their bachelor's degree. So specifically, what's the scope of electronics and communication and electrical engineering in India, right? And what are the areas that they can work in, and the companies that they can work for?
Sure. So generally speaking, there are different sectors. As we know, in India, you know, there are government jobs like defense. So if you are interested, you can, you know, join Air Force or, you know, Indian Navy, Army. They have engineering corps, right? So there are engineers who maintain or are in charge of maintaining their planes. You can, of course, become a pilot as well. Same with Navy, you know, there are ships, other equipment that needs maintaining. Communication engineering comes into that as well, signal processing and all of that. So that is government sector. And then there are communication companies in government sector as well. You know, BSNL has started, you know, hiring a lot since recent years, and all the power companies, BHEL, other power companies. So all of those power companies, of course, would be a good fit. And the private sector, so there are a lot of companies, depending upon what you're interested in, you know. So I'm just going to talk about a few companies that are specifically engineering companies and not really, based on programming skills. So these are not computer engineering or IT companies, just engineering companies. So BHEL, Siemens, Nokia, Kelvin Electricals is a good one. Bajaj Electricals. So these are all Indian companies. There are some international companies, you know, that are in India as well. Schneider Electric is one of those. So these companies primarily hire power engineers. So that's what we call electrical engineering in India. So that is power engineering. And then for electronics or communications, we have Altair, Ansys, HCL. So those companies, DRDO, Cisco, and then there's Cadence, HP, Texas Instrument also hires in India as well. All of the big groups, Tata, Reliance is, of course, another big electronics and communications engineering company. And then there are more contemporary companies as well in renewable energy or alternate energy groups, so solar, wind, nuclear. So these companies, again, all the big groups have their small alternate energy groups. The Tata Power Solar System is one. There's Moser Baer Solar Limited, GE Wind Energy. So these companies basically are, again, founded in India. They're working for India, manufacturing, designing to manufacturing to installation. Everything is in India. And they're expanding. They're relatively new companies and in contemporary fields. So, of course, if you want to go into semiconductor devices, analysis, signal processing, power design, distribution, generation, all of those fields. So they're hiring in all of those major engineering fields. Also, mechanical engineering, so that's also part of that. Materials, that's part of that as well.
Great, great, and we'll post this information on which companies you can go and look out for in our section on the website. Now, for those who want to study abroad, right? What kind of candidates are universities usually looking for?
Okay, so the way U.S. universities hire is very different from the way you would get admitted into an Indian university for your master's or PhD program. So Indian universities typically are only focused on your academic performance. That's not how it works in the US. So your application is looked as a whole package. Okay, so universities are looking for candidates who are, first of all, really passionate about pursuing higher studies in a particular field. And you have to demonstrate that you are actually interested. Okay, so that's first. Second, they're looking for candidates who can contribute towards their degree program in terms of academic skills, scholarship qualities, but also in terms of leadership, service, community activities. So they're looking how well you fit in, in the campus community. Okay, so in terms of what values you bring to the campus, what expertise you bring to the campus, and also how much you can benefit from being at a campus. So even though you might want to go to campus A, but campus B might actually be a better fit for you in terms of how much you can gain from something. So they're looking at all of those things. So the things that I mentioned earlier, so in addition to your academic excellence, that is established by your grades, just showing that you're passionate about something by doing projects on your own time, by engaging in community service, your local community, citywide, village, whatever you want to do. There are, so many different things that you could be doing for your community. It doesn't have to be something big. You don't have to be part of some big organization, even at small level, at local level. Getting involved with local NGOs, groups that are already doing good work. So that is a good starting point. And then in terms of leadership and leadership skills, so if you are involved in your campus activities, tech fests, organizing sports events, organizing cultural events, if you are into sports and cultural activities, if you are news editor, or if you are engaged in your campus magazine or you write, things like that. So all of those skills are really, really valued. So, doing something beyond your studies, basically, because once you are on campus, more or less everybody who wants to do something afterwards, they are going to study, right? So academically, everybody is usually in the same ballpark, but what will set you apart is doing something other than the required, doing something beyond what you were required to do to get your degree. So those are the things that universities are looking at.
Right. And if you want to pursue master's, PhD, then your focus necessarily has to be on research.
Yes.
In the bachelor's degree. But if you only want to go to a foreign university and spend time to get a master's degree and then get a job, then what you should be focused on is how to hone your leadership skills.
Yes.
And going and getting some experience with some companies during internships and stuff. We can talk more about that during the immigration section that we talk about. So I'll quickly want to get some thoughts from you, Dr. Kaur, on some specific questions that the students asked. One of which was, is it hard for someone who's not from an IIT, right, to go abroad for higher education?
No, it's not. And you won't be surprised to know, but majority of the Indian students who come to US for their higher studies are not from IITs. That's a minority. It's good if you go to a reputable school, of course. It's going to be to your advantage, but if you're not at a well-known school, that doesn't set you back in any way. So again, the process here in the US is a little bit different. So if you are from a school that you think is not very well known, or it might not be very old or established, anything like that, again, your application is being looked at just for you primarily. Okay, so what you have done, not necessarily what school you come from, or what type of a school it is. So even if you are from an IIT, that doesn't guarantee you or give you any benefit as such. Beyond the fact that, okay, somebody picking up their application will know what an IIT means and what it stands for. But beyond that, they are going to look at the application as they will for any other candidate. Absolutely. So right. It really is up to you what you bring to that application. Okay, and you're not at any disadvantage if you're not in an IIT.
Right. Great. Then the next question was, is a BE in electrical engineering accepted in the US?
Yeah, so any type of bachelor 4-year degree program, basically. Yes. So that's primarily because BSc, if you have a BSc in something, that's a 3-year degree program. So that's not sufficient. You need 4-year professional degree. So any type of BE, BTech, if there are any BSc programs that are 4 years, I'm not aware of those, but 4-year professional programs in any engineering field are accepted and are valid.
Right, and if you have a 3-year degree and you want to come to the US or Canada or go to Australia, you would have to do an extra year, and we can talk about those things. You can always reach out to us through our mobile app or email us at support@connexio.io. The link should be given in the details under this video. Now moving on to some more general questions about electronics and communication and EE. What fields do you think are picking up, are becoming more popular under the EE area?
Mm-hmm. So before I answer that question, I just want to distinguish those terms. So I know in India we have different degrees in electrical engineering, electronics and communications, or instrumentation, maybe devices even. So in US and Canada, all of these fields are under the same umbrella of electrical engineering. Okay, so what you perceive to be electrical engineering in US, we call it power engineering. Okay, but all of these fields, so it will be one department called electrical engineering, catering to all of these different fields. Now, in terms of hot and contemporary fields, so alternate energy sources, so solar, wind, nuclear, those sectors are really, really hot right now, and extending that to automotive industry. So basically hybrid cars, driverless cars. So that's where your robotics experience will come into the picture as well. Programming skills will be needed as well. Signal processing is part of that big time, and also data analysis. Okay, so so these two categories, alternate energy sources, the whole industry, because that industry is relatively new. Manufacturing units are still being set up. These things are being sorted out. So that's really, really hot. And anything to do with, automatic processing, driverless cars, and within automotive, again, hybrid engines. So if you're into power engineering, hybrid engines is a really, really big thing right now.
Great. I know you just mentioned power engineering and electrical engineering, and there was a question from one or two students. What is actually the difference between power and electrical engineering?
So if you're in India, there's no difference. In India, power engineering is electrical engineering. Okay, so that's what the degree is catered towards. In the US, power engineering is actually part of electrical engineering. It is one of the areas of electrical engineering. So some of the other areas are, communications, electronic devices, optical fiber sensing, electromagnetic compatibility, EMC, we call it. You may know it by antenna wave propagation. So that's where it connects, controls and automation. And then we also have power as a whole group, and then some universities have different areas even within power, wireless networks, neural networks, smart structures. So all of these different fields are under electrical engineering in US and also in Canada.
Great. I think that pretty much wraps up our questions around electrical engineering. So the next segment that we want to move into is questions on immigration and how to generally prepare to go study abroad. Again, these are general questions that we want to answer, and Dr. Kaur, please feel free to chime in if I'm missing on a detail. The first question was, what options do I have after my bachelor's degree? Now, the cool thing about coming and studying in the US or Canada is you can really pivot from whatever you've done before into a new degree altogether. For example, an electrical engineer can actually move into master's in computer science or anthropology or mechanical engineering or robotics, to be specific. Or you can actually just go into engineering management, which is another bridge between engineering and management. It's a good segue for you to take if you want to move towards management and still stay with an engineering company.
Yes, and as to your point about engineering management, so systems engineering is also part of it. So you can have any engineering background and do these degrees without doing extra work. But if you want to switch from, let's say, electronics or electrical engineering to mechanical, you may be required to take just a few extra courses that are known as core courses. But it's not going to add a significant time to your graduation.
Right. So the next question was, what all to consider before making a decision to study abroad? I think it's a personal choice, but we definitely recommend everyone to make that choice because you learn a lot as you go study abroad. The things to consider are definitely your financial constraints, right? There are ways to offset those constraints through doing research, assistantship with professors, and other stuff that you can do on and off campus, right? But that's number one that you should consider. Number two is, do you want to go work at a specific company that does not actually have any, footing in your own country? So that's another thing to think about. Thirdly, do you just want to, go get some experience in a different country and come back and bring that experience? So those are the things that you should consider. Also, you'll have to take some extra exams. So not just your academic exams are going to do. If you're going to Canada, then you have to take IELTS or TOEFL. If you're going to US, then you have to take an additional exam, which is the GMAT for an MBA and the GRE for your bachelor's degree, and then IELTS to basically show your proficiency in English.
And some of the schools actually have started, getting away from GRE, and they are, extending admissions only based on TOEFL or even IELTS. So, once you decide on what schools you want to apply for, then based on that, your testing requirements might vary.
Right, and to give you a good idea of what to do when you have to pick a particular country, our app is really helpful. You can go and download it from the App Store. It's on the Google Play Store. Go through the guide section, fill out your profile, see which universities you match to, right? And you can always reach out to our help team that would reply back to your questions and queries within 24 hours. The link to the app is again given in the blog that we actually have under the video, so you can always click on that and go and download our app. Moving on, what are the possible scholarships? So I'm going to take the first stab at it, and then you can join. So let's assume you want to come here for your master's degree. The possible scholarships usually happen through your GRE or GMAT or other scores. That's number one. But those are very hard to come by because there's tough competition for those. Now, the other things that you can always do to offset the cost of your education is work as a research assistant or work as a teaching assistant. For working as a research assistant, you need to show some background in research, and that is where you doing research in your bachelor's degree would come in handy. To do a teaching research assistantship, you usually have to talk to a professor and agree on the terms with him or her. The other ways are to work on and off campus. US allows you to work on campus, do different jobs. You can work at a library or at the admissions office and compensate for 20 hours a week, or get compensated for 20 hours a week. In Canada, you can work both on and off campus, right? And all those details are again available through the guidance section of our app. You can read through those, and if you have specific questions, feel free to reach out to us.
And I would add to that teaching assistantship sometimes means you will be teaching students, although that would involve teaching courses full-fledged on your own. Sometimes assist professors like to set up a classroom or just to answer students' questions. Sometimes you teach labs on your own, and sometimes just grading positions. So you will be grading homeworks for a professor and getting paid hourly basis. And there is one off-campus option in the US as well that is known as summer internship or 6 months co-op program. So those are training programs, but in the US you get paid for the training program. So it's like any other full-time job. So if you're working for 2 months, you get paid for 2 months, and you actually usually get paid more than what you would pay for your tuition. So that's a good offset. For research assistantship, you can start immediately. There is no requirement as to a minimum attendance on campus as such. For teaching assistantship, some schools put a requirement that you have to successfully complete 1 semester before you can start teaching. That is primarily to establish that you're academically sound and that you can actually teach your juniors.
Right. And in the same sort of arena, I also want to mention a question which was asked about how not to spend too much money while studying abroad, which is a fair question, and a lot of students do really think about that. And I think, as Dr. Kaur mentioned, the multiple opportunities that you have to get jobs on and off campus is one way. The other way is to think about it this way. If you want to work 2 years, you can work as a research assistant, right, and spend 2 years getting paid for your research, right? Usually those positions are hard to come by because professors are looking for people with a longer commitment who would want to do a PhD after their master's degree. But then on the other leg, you always have the opportunity to actually come in, take as many courses as you want in the first few months, and then look for an internship. And that is where the programs like the CPT and OPT kick in. We can explain more about the CPT and OPT in our blog as we put on their website. But those are good opportunities for you to actually go do an internship, get paid, right, and basically cut the tenure of your master's degree to 1.5 years, and then graduate and get a job.
Mm-hmm. And also, to just a little bit elaboration on that point. So you have to be aggressive in your approach in pursuing these opportunities. So research assistantships, teaching assistantships, these things are not going to come to you. GRE, GMAT, score-based scholarships, they will come to you, and you literally have to do nothing about those. But in order to pursue research and teaching positions, you will have to talk to people, talk to professors, talk to department chairs, talk to secretaries in your departments, or if you are not here yet, start sending emails, finding about those opportunities. So that is one way. We here in the US are very different. So communication is encouraged here. Questioning is appreciated here. So you will have to ask questions to get information and to get to those opportunities. So it's most like beyond your basic skills, it's first come, first served basis. So if a professor has a position, somebody walk to their office, ask for that. If they think that they have necessary skills or they can learn the skills, they're going to get the job. And that's how I got my first job, teaching assistantship.
Right.
So I just walked into someone's office, asked for it, and they said, okay, have you taught before? I said, no, but I'm willing to learn. And I got the job. And that's all of my friends have the same story. So you have to go talk to as many people as possible. Of course, this wasn't the first person I talked to. There were probably 10 people before, this professor who did not have any opportunities, and that's fine. But they will help you in identifying that, hey, go talk to that person. That person might have an opportunity.
Right. I should also mention that there's a lot to think about when you have to reach out to professors. And there's a section that is actually dedicated to this on how to secure funding through the section on the app. So please check that out. That'll be very helpful for you to understand what is required and what do you have to do in order to reach out to professors.
And I think given time, we might also add a section in terms of how to email. So professionally, how to approach, because I know email is not a big thing in India. Email is a primary means of communication here, especially in US, academic scene. So we might add that section.
It's already in there.
Okay, good. So you should go check that out in terms of how to email, how to approach someone.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. The next question that a student had was, can we interact with the students who are already on the campus at universities? At the universities that we want to go and study in? Yes, of course, you can do that. But in case you are having difficulties or don't know how to go about approaching, right, you're more than welcome to reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to find somebody for you to talk to. The idea of Connexio is connect you with the best resources possible. And if those resources are for you to get guidance from other students at parity or who are senior to you, we'd be more than happy to connect you with the right resources. So please reach out to us if you have any questions. The next one is, what is better, master's in science, which is what it is called here, MS, or an MBA? It essentially depends on you. It's your personal preference, what you want to do. But let me give you some background with some experience that we have. If you want to go into business, if you want to go into finance and you're an engineering student, then definitely go into an MBA, right? But if you are somebody who wants to try out how does an MBA look like, it's going to take you about 2 to 3 years of work experience before you're accepted into a good program. So for them, a good idea is to do a master's degree and go study in a country, understand the culture of the country, not pay as much, right? And then after you've done the study, done some experience, you can then apply for an MBA. So it totally depends on you. But mostly the schools in the US and Canada, good schools in the US and Canada and good programs, would require you to at least have 2 years of work experience.
And the best schools are going to require 3. And a good alternative. So if you're not sure that you really want to do an MBA, if your idea is just to get into management level positions, engineering management is a good option.
Right.
So that, without shelling too much money, you essentially get the skills, basic necessary skills that will tie engineering with management. And then you can, there are some certifications that you want to just, add on to your resume.
Right. Next question is around, preparing for coming to the US. US out of all the other countries is still the top destination for students, especially who want to go into technology and business, finance. And it's one of the most complicated ones. So the things to prepare generally are, you got to prepare for your GRE, right? If you want to do your master's in engineering. And then you got to prepare for your GMAT if you want to do your MBA. Now, apart from that, you have to take an essential IELTS or TOEFL exam to prove your language efficiency, to prove your efficiency in English. And every school requires that. Some schools, as Dr. Kaur said, are going away from requiring the GRE or GMAT, but it's still advisable for you to think about taking that exam, because it's a good practice. You'd be asked for those exam scores later on when you go for your visa interview, etc. Right? But in case you are not inclined to take your GMAT or GRE, then you'd still be able to match with some schools who don't require them. And we'd be more than happy to get you in touch with the admissions department from those schools, and then you can understand the requirements a little better from them.
But GRE does open more doors in terms of scholarships. So if you have
Yes.
a good GRE or GMAT scores, you will be offered scholarships even without before asking. TOEFL and IELTS do not have such opportunities associated with those. Those are just required to test your language skills.
Right. And, you know, there are multiple, you know, a whole barrage of steps that you still have to take. And there's a step-by-step guidance that we've put together for you to understand what you need to do. So please check out the guidance section of our app. It's very helpful for students like yourself who are motivated to you know, do things yourself rather than going and paying somebody to help you out. The next question comes from a student, and she asks, what difficulties that I would face as an international student if I were to come to the US or go to Canada? Do you want to take that?
Sure. Well, I mean, that rather depends on if you have any prior, you know, traveling abroad experience or not. But primarily, the first barrier is going to be language, and that's not to say that you don't have English skills. That's just to say that spoken English in USA is different. Written English is slightly different as well. There are different names for things that, you know, for example, capsicum here is called bell pepper. You know, things like that. But it's a learning curve, but you can learn, you know. So if you have an open mind, then you will get over that learning curve really soon. So if you are, you know, open to learning, that is. So that's the first thing. Second is assimilating on campus. You know, campus life here is very different. Classrooms look very different. As I mentioned earlier, questioning is encouraged. So the classrooms are very casual, very interactive. My students never hesitate, you know, to ask me a question. So the relationship in that way is not hierarchical, you know. So those opportunities are there. So if you are, again, you know, try to get comfortable with those ideas that, okay, asking questions are okay, things like that. And then, of course, you know, if you are right now living at home and this will be your first time living away from home on your own, that could be, you know, intimidating. But you're not going to be the only international student on campus. You're certainly not going to be the only one from India. Even at smaller campuses, you know, there will be multiple students coming in for the same term. There are international orientations, so you'll get to meet with them. You'll get to find people, you know, you can live together with or, you know, be friends with. And all campuses have student organizations. So there will be an India association or, you know, Turkish association and so on and so forth. So there will be avenues for you where you can connect with the students who have been there or who have come for the same term, and making it a little bit easier of an experience for you. There are also professionals on campus that help you with all of those things. They will guide you step by step. And Connexio, of course, will be there to help you from, you know, where to eat, how to ask or how to order food. That's rather different here. And all of those things like that. So, you know, we'll be there to help you when you get to that point.
Absolutely. You know, and as Dr. Kaur mentioned, I still want to, you know, emphasize on this, that we are not only looking to get you into the best fit school or university, we're going to be there to help you out when you're here and you want to assimilate into the new system. So that is what Connexio is all about, you know, to provide you with the right resources until you start feeling at home. Some good things to know is a lot of students move to these countries because these countries are very inviting. So all the news that you hear, there's some truth to it, but the majority of people here would welcome you with open arms, right? And there are resources to help you make, you know, to help you feel better and feel at home. You'll find new people, find new communities, you know, and you'll get a new perspective. So might as well try it.
Absolutely.
Now, moving on to more legal stuff about how to get a job in a foreign country. So a few things. Students who do not want to come here for their master's or PhD, the best way to do this is to work at a company which has, some subsidiary in the US or any other country that you want to go and work in, and then move your way up into the hierarchy where they'll send you to that country of your choice. That's going to take you a few years.
And most of the multinational companies in all the major fields,
right.
They have opportunities in different countries. So, for example, for civil engineers, Middle East is a very lucrative market. So people go to Dubai, for example, for different projects. For communications, African continent is a hotspot right now because they're expanding their communications network. So, that will be, so all the communication companies are working in those countries. And generally speaking, in US, so all the sectors are open. There are big multinational companies who work both in India and in the US. So you can get jobs in India and then, of course, find projects to work either in the US, in Europe, or, rest of the world.
Right. A good thing about doing your master's or PhD in a different country internationally, it gives you a chance to not only assimilate into a new culture, understand what's going on in a different country around the world, but also opens you up for different job opportunities. So companies do come and recruit at different campuses. And if you are somebody who wants to go and work for Google, and you want to do it in Silicon Valley, then there's no better place to do that apart from doing a master's or PhD or a bachelor's degree even in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And career fairs here are very different from India, so it's not going to be just IT companies. And in fact, I don't recall actually any IT companies coming on campus. Primarily, these are your field-specific companies who come on campus. So last career fair that we had on my university campus, we had over 200 companies. And then, of course, not all of them are going to hire international students because there are legalities involved. Some companies are not big enough, but a good significant number hires international students, and recruitment is never an issue.
Right. Now, some questions that we've gotten from the students who are already watching this video are, one of the question is some work experience mandatory to get admitted into master's program in electrical engineering?
No work. For masters, you don't have to have any experience, work or research. No experience is required, just your bachelor's 4-year degree program.
Cool. So yeah, no experience required for your master's degree, but you do require experience for your MBA?
Yeah. MBA is the only master's degree where you will need prior work experience. And that, again, depends on what university you want to apply for. Some universities might accept you even with 1 year, some accept with 3 years. But if you want to do master's in engineering, you don't need any prior experience.
Yes. And then, it totally depends on you, what sort of degree you want to do and what requirements are. If you want to do an MBA right after this, after your bachelor's degree without any work experience, then there are universities that accept you, right? And there are good schools that would accept you, right? But there's a reason why somebody requires you to have some experience for an MBA, and the reason is that that's what it's taught during an MBA degree. So it's a good best practice to actually follow, essentially, to have some experience before you apply for an MBA.
And it also helps you in identifying what field of expertise you want to pursue in an MBA. Do you want to go towards finance, anthropology, IT? These are all different aspects of MBA that you can pursue. So if you don't have any experience, you're not going to know what your likes and dislikes are. So, it also helps you with establishing and finding best fit for your personality and your skill set.
Right. The next question that we got is from a student who says, I got a chance to go to Australia for the rest of, for the remaining of 2 years during my bachelor's degree as through an exchange program in the University of Queensland. Mm-hmm. And she's asking, do you think it's worth to go there? I'm pursuing electrical engineering.
Absolutely. I would say yes. I mean, there's no question. Any The only thing that you have to be careful about is what type of degree program it is. University of Queensland is reputed university, known worldwide. They have good programs, so you've got nothing to worry about. And it's actually a really good thing if you get this type of an opportunity in your undergrad. I would definitely recommend that, because that not only exposes you to a new culture, learning opportunities, but also give you experience of how engineering is done in other countries, because everything right now is international, interdisciplinary. So you'll get to collaborate with some of your colleagues from University of Queensland, even after you have graduated. So there are only benefits. There's no downside to it. So I would definitely recommend that.
Great. Now, the other questions that we have are getting into more specifics. What is required to become a U.S. citizen? Well, it's a long way. I'll try and explain that in a short, short 2 or 3 sentences for you. As a student, you cannot apply for citizenship because you're not eligible to apply for citizenship.
And that is a non-immigrant visa.
That's a non-immigrant intent visa. Right. But once you get a job, you can always apply for the citizenship. You still have to go through your employer because the employer has to sponsor you to get a citizenship or apply for a green card, as it is known in the US.
The first step will be to get your work visa. Once you have your work visa, then you apply for permanent residency, PR in Canada, green card in US. Once you have your green card, then 5 years after that, you become eligible to be a citizen. So you can apply that. There are different green card categories. So depending upon your education background and what type of work you do, you will be basically eligible to apply your green card in different categories.
Right. Okay, this is a very specific question, but I think you can answer this, Dr. Kaur. What are the chances of getting a postdoc position in the US? The student is in India right now and wants to pursue the postdoc in the US. And the second part of that question is how to approach a professor for that position.
Sure. So I will, try to generally answer this. Later on, if you can give us specifics as to what is your current situation right now. Are you pursuing PhD? Do you have a PhD? So for postdoc, first requirement is to have a PhD. And also you have to have a really good research established, publications, a number of publications, types of publications they vary from one field to the other. So, provide us with those details and I can give you a more specific answer. But generally speaking, so postdoc opportunities will be available on any campus that has research program in your field. So for example, if your PhD is with a research emphasis in optical fiber sensing, then any university that has a research lab in that area would most likely have a postdoc position. Good way to know is just research, find out about research groups on that campus, find out about professors who may be doing research in that area, and then to approach, So basically, you would just address your email to a particular, doctor, minor, or whatever that person's name may be, and then just introduce yourself, let them know a little bit about yourself, specifically about your research, and then let them know what specifically you want to do, if you get the postdoc position. So that is one way of doing that. The other way of finding postdoc positions is on job sites, actually. So the national labs here, the labs, the companies, the research companies or companies that engage in research, like Intel, IBM, Apple, Google, they all have their research wings. So they also hire postdoc positions as well. There are national labs like Sandia, Oak Ridge National Lab. They also hire postdocs, and they also hire internationals. Okay, so there are different avenues there to explore. And if you share a little bit more specific details about you, then I can guide you better.
Right, and all you got to do is send us an email at support@connexio.io. The link again is given in the blog under the video, so you can always use that. Now, I think we're coming to the end of the session. I thank you very much, Dr. Kaur. Thank you so much for spending this time.
It was a pleasure.
And guys, we will post all the answers from Dr. Kaur and myself onto our blog in the next 1 week. So please look out for the emails that we send out to you with all the answers. I know that there are a lot of other questions that the students had, very specific to yourself. So you'll get answers to those questions during on that blog as well. So look out for that. I also want to give a shout out to Pallavi, Ujjwal, and Lavleen, who've been moderating this event on the chat side of things. So thank you so much, guys. Again, if you have any questions, reach out to us at support@connexio.io. Feel free to download our app, use it to see what universities you match with, and figure out what guidance you need. We'll be more than happy to help you out. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you and good luck.